Shinam base, you know. Not Shinam at Aleph Siv Gimel, sorry. Yeah, Shinam at Aleph. Okay, this is a very important halacha. Again, for every person, you hire a worker, and first mistake you do is you don't write a contract or email. I want to tell you something. The email is the best things, the best things. Sitting in the Tauber, email, because you know, there's a correspondence, what was said, was not. So the question is, you hire a worker, and you got to tell them, I'm going to pay you the going rate. Sounds good, no? You know, a hire plumber. I hope I don't have any plumbers here. Yes, no? If you hire a plumber, and he charges, who knows what.
Charges you before they do the job. You can ask any money you want. That's how they do it.
They send you a bill. Usually they send you a bill. You know, if you didn't make up how much it is, you didn't make up at all how much the money's going to be. He just comes, does a service. You could tell him, theoretically speaking, but they didn't learn this one halacha that maybe not that way, but you could tell him, I'm going to pay you as, the cheapest work. Mechatesa. And I sent him the Tauber, where it was that way. It was an enormous amount. And I asked other three plumbers, how much would it cost such a job? And they didn't say it's such a...
It's never such a clear thing. They can claim that it was flushed up, and it was this.
But the bottom line, even what he said, this plumber charges so much and this plumber charges so much. If you did not make up how much it is,
you're paying the cheapest.
And you have the right to say the cheapest.
It's not fair market value.
Whatever's the cheapest, people, a plumber will do it. If you find plumbers who will do this for $100 and he's charging $500, I don't have to pay.
So even though the fair market value is $250,
yeah, there is no fair market value on working. Yad Baal Hashtar ala Tuchtoina.
Does as a practical matter, which litigant has to bring in the expert witness to say what the value is?
The Amoitzim Chaveda always has. This is very important. In Choshen Mishpat, the burden of proof is the Amoitzim Chaveda. How do you say Amoitzim Chaveda? The one that takes the money. If you want, this is a true story. It was with a plumber, and he charged for an enormous amount of money. Said it was a weekend, and he sent his workers, and I think it was $10,000. And he didn't want to pay him. So it was many years ago. So I remember asking three other plumbers how much would the. So there's a big machlokes. So I'm going to.
He did the job.
He did the job, and then he sends him a bill, $10,000.
You didn't make up before. That's the key thing.
You didn't make up. Most often they don't make up.
How much was the average?
I don't remember that of the detail. Must many years ago. We asked a bunch of plumbers. So now big machlokes in the Shulchan Aruch. I'm going to show you. Muken soicher is a poel. Ve'umaloi ke'echad ikeshnayim. Like one of the two people. Siv Gimel. You don't have it? Siv Gimel. Yes, Shin Ahmed Aleph Siv Gimel. You don't have it in the print?
We have it.
Yeah. Shin Ahmed Aleph Siv Gimel. So he says, if you hire a worker, he didn't say going rate. He says like one of the two, ke'echad d'shnai means the high one, the low one. So the average rate, sort of, this says. Machashven hayeses you look for the highest price. The apucha shebeschiris and the lowest. Imasha b'neim noitze chetzi. Whatever in between, give half. Now, there's so many different shittas about what the mechaba means, but let me just say the most simple. I guess it's too confusing. The way the most the mechaba meant to say, I checked the highest amount, which is $10. The lowest amount is $5. In between is $7.50. Because I said ke'echad ikishnayim. So it means I said like the higher and the lower. And if you said this, we say the average. He says ke'echad ikishnayim. B'mnei machash yeshu b'schiras. You're right. B'moishu b'shesh. The mechaba says it was 6. So pucha is b'arba. And the little and the low was 4. Lois and the chumash gives 5. Now, do you have? I don't know if you printed it. There's this tiny Taz. I don't think you printed it yet. Anyways, the Taz later says a big chiddush. What happens? I didn't tell you about the expensive and the cheaper ones.
Wow.
I didn't say anything.
That's what we're talking about.
Didn't say anything. Didn't say the you call up the plumber and he comes. Many achronim hold. We're going to see later why not everyone agrees to it. Many achronim says, Yad, you want to be moitzimum for me? We didn't make up. I could say, I meant the cheapest. I didn't know you're so expensive. That's why, if you want to do it correctly, when I was young, I was told Lushan Hara about someone in my community. First of all, you know what a cheverman this guy is? A guy comes, a plumber comes, and he does his work, and then he says he charges him $150, he gives him $125. And the guy says, it cuts $25 off.
Make him feel like he's a
Garnish. And a chitzpah, blah, 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 blah. So I was young, and then I remember learning the halacha. I said, wait a minute. He didn't make up the price. How do you know the price is 150? Just because you decided 150. If you tell him, this is the price, what I will charge, this is how it costs, I charge by an hour, plus labor, plus the materials, and this is how much, then that's okay. There are plumbers who do that, right? There are plumbers who come, who make you sign. I once had one time ago. That is, but that's the estimate of time. But then he said to you, you're going to have to pay me for the hours kach v'kach. Often people, your plumber never comes to you and he just comes, you don't ask questions, he sends you a bill and FCE.
Any business where they're the expert and you're not, whether it's a car mechanic or a dentist
Right.
or a plumber, you have no idea.
No. When did they tell you the price? Before they worked or after they worked? That's the key over here. Right. That's what
So if you say afterwards, then you could say, you're way too expensive.
after he worked.
If a company publishes their price list on their website, for example, or wherever it is, you can't order food for delivery from a restaurant and say I'm going to change the pricing on you because I didn't know the price. So if they publish their pricing, is that true?
Well,
We never made an agreement. I just called the plumber come over.
it's hard to, because who looks at the website?
That's the point. I'm asking. Does it matter? When you say
Probably not. I would have to think about it. Mishpat is very hard always to jump to a thing. The rule is the worker is obligated to demand his price. Before. That's the rule of the game in Choshen Mishpat.
Is there an obligation from the higher?
The higher likes to be ambiguous.
Because of this din. Yeah, because of this din.
Yeah, yes. I watch all the time.
Just
Every day Torah, I always watch the one who's losing always becomes very ambiguous. He's afraid to say this, he's afraid to say this. It's always the one who the rule is by soicher, by poil, you have to demand what you want.
You the sukkah?
The worker has to say what he wants. Otherwise, the guy could always say, I thought you're the cheaper. We're going to see later that why many places can hold that you do take the average even though you didn't say anything. We'll have to see this later. What do you want to say?
as opposed to the lowest.
The lowest.
I was saying, I just heard a story recently from someone that he had almost this exact story with a car service. He had to get to the airport. He was in New Jersey. He had to get to JFK. And he realized as he's getting there that he never asked the guy what the price is. So one of these like car service, not a taxi. There's no meter. So he gets there. The guy told him it's $350. This is $350 to go from Newark to JFK. I don't think so. But he didn't make it up beforehand.
So you could have paid him $20.
Well,
Or whatever the going rate is, the cheapest rate.
that's exactly the scenario.
You never should get, I mean, at Yisrael, when I used to take in, they never want to say the price. I said, no. I told my daughter when she went to seminary, she was a little more shy, but all the older daughters were not shy, but she was shy. I says, do not get in and say, you want to go for me, how much is it? And they'd hear your American accent, tell me how much is it? Doesn't want to tell you, don't get into the car. As soon as she wants to step out, then all of a sudden they say the price.
Is there an obligation on the?
It's because then you get into a fight.
Right.
She doesn't have to pay, but she's 18 years old. When she's going to fight with this Svarti over there.
It's not better to ask.
What did you say?
Halachically, it's not better to ask.
Better to ask. It is better to ask. Always good to know how. Always good to know what your price is. Allah, always get to know what the price is. You always get into trouble, and then you feel cheated. The worst thing is that people feel cheated. When I pay overpriced and then. Okay.
What if the worker decides to use materials that you didn't contemplate? Let's say they say we need to have copper piping or whatever it is. You didn't contemplate having such high value materials, and he wants to charge you for it.
We're going to learn later. We're going to learn a whole sermon about that. That means you didn't need copper. Let me answer your question because you need this the next sermon. Let me just rephrase this question. The din is, a guy comes into your field, and your field needs fixing, and he fixes your field. Let's say he comes into the shul, this doesn't need a painting, but a guy says, it's dirty. It doesn't need a paint.
I can say that.
Yeah. No, it really does need a paint. Let's say a place that needs a painting, guy's going to come in, and is going to paint the place. So, yeah, even though he says, I wasn't going to paint it now, I was going to wait, you have a nur, you have to pay. Again, you pay the cheapest price, cheap. All right, but you pay. That means I never asked you, but since I have a nur, I have to pay. Now, what happens? The guy went, this happened in our community. Also, a case was where a guy built a fence. Guy remade his house next door to another guy, and when he made a house, he built a very expensive fence, and he wanted his neighbor to give half the money. So he says to him, I didn't need such a fancy fence. I had a cheap fence. You took it off. It was falling apart, I agree, but it was a cheap fence. I am not a wealthy guy to have a wealthy fence. So even though he has a nur, we can make him pay. Just because you wanted an expensive fence, you cannot impose. You understand? You cannot impose just because you did it and put up a fence, expect him to pay. You could expect him if it's an average fence. That's what's the going fence.
Even in the case when there was also the broken fence, like I can find it, there was a fence there.
He did agree that he was schlepping. But he needed a fence. But you're asking, if your guy doesn't need copper pipes, and I decided to put in copper, I don't need, take it down. But if I say, no, leave the copper pipes, it sounds good. So then you have to pay for it. You understand? If your taka didn't need it, and the guy just, that's why the mechanics, you need to trust them. Who knows what they charge you? Okay.
What are we answering? When the guy put in something better than you needed.
If it's something, a fence, the marshal.
I'm happy to have copper piping in my house now that it's in there, but I would not have asked for it, nor could I pay for it.
Let's say you can't afford it. Yeah. That's another question. But later on, Siman later. That's also. Let's say it's gewaldig to have it, but there's no way that an average person could. Let's say people cannot afford such a thing, and never would put it in. And I would tell you, well, you know what? Take it out. I can't pay you the $10,000 that you want. You pay it with plastic. See, all depends on the situation. That's why
the cost of taking it out and replacing
that's
it.
his headache. If I didn't ask him, that's his problem.
So long as you're willing to say, hey, take it out.
Yeah, but but we have later see that sometimes he could be a dreikup. But the truth is that say the fence is a gewaltige mashal. Most people do not build such expensive fence. Doesn't a nice fence. This guy rebuilt a house, put $300,000, took one of the houses, and I think it was your father's block even from us. Took that one of these houses, he rebuilt it, and he was a wealthy guy, and then he put up this expensive fence, and he wanted his neighbor to pay. So that, the truth is, he would never would have put it up. He can't afford it. Even half the money he couldn't afford. It's very expensive. And, it's nice. Someone gives it a gift. There's no way he would ever go and buy such a fence. This is beyond the standard. He doesn't have to pay. See, but later learn, dakas they can have come in. Mishpat always, what dakas means? Very subtle.
Does he have to not pay at all, or does he pay only the...
He has to pay how much an average fence he would have built together with. Half of that.
He would pay a value of half of
A half of the average fence.
So it's not
Which turned out to be Bobkis. He was so annoyed. Turned out not to be very expensive. And he put up a, $20,000 fence, I think it was. I recently had someone in Torah. He says, Rabbi, if you're going to tell me he only owes me $2,000, I'm Moichel Toivis. He tells me. I'm not down for $2,000. I says, I don't know what the end result is going to be. But, he says to me, that's going to be more insult. You come to the Torah, you want to know the halacha, and it turned out he has to pay him $300, not $2,000. He's worried about that. All right, let's learn Shiurim the base. Now, this is very negeya, and I hate to say the mashal. This was one time I want to off record, take it over. One time, a few years ago, was a Chabad came to me with one of the parents. Mamash negay this halacha. Now, this is, we're talking now, when you hire, let me explain something. Agdoma to this Siman. You hire someone and his work is really worth a lot more money. But you tell him, I am only paying so much. And he agreed. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. I didn't know, I couldn't know. That's also often in Torah. I didn't realize that people like to turn the watch back, but if a guy says clearly, this is the work, I'm going to do the plumbing, I'm going to, whatever the job he's going to do, the case was tutoring a child, tutored the child, it doesn't make a difference. He said, the father says, this is what I could afford, this is what I'm paying, that's it. For the job. This was a child tutoring an hourly basis, this is how much I could afford. There's no, even though every tutor gets a lot more money, let's say, and especially he had a degree in special ed, doesn't make a difference. We made up, this is the price, I cannot afford more, finished. So that's clear. What happens if a guy a child needs tutoring? This happens in schools. And this is the schools learn from the mistakes not to do it. And they send her to the, to the seminars. I imagine Chabad has it too, where in the faculty is someone who tutors and helps the children fall behind. They don't have it in the schools, and all schools have it. So now, already after many years, I know to the seminars, all the schools send a note, and then I'm going to start tutoring unless the parents agree. But they used to tutor and then send a bill. Parents says, always the parent says, who asked you to do it without my consent? The halacha is, you do have to pay. The question is how much? You have to pay, later see the going rate.
Why do you have to pay?
Because I tutored your child who needs tutoring.
But the parent didn't agree to
He didn't say no.
the parent knew about it.
He didn't know nothing. Nothing. He didn't know nothing. I tutored his child, and the child needed tutoring, and it was agreed that he needs tutoring. The father says, you didn't ask me, I don't want to pay you. He has to pay.
But how come in the reverse, it's
If Nuchi mows my lawn, I after paying for it, you
Yes.
buy it and ask you to
Yes, yes, yes.
Why don't we go around
Well,
doing
how
work?
come the person doesn't,
Why
oh,
don't we-
remember you said earlier, the guy tutored, you need a price,
Why don't we,
a price is.
See, let me explain to you one, the why tutoring is a problem. Why is a shtickle problem? Because who says, because, I'll leave it later. I don't want to get confused. Choshmish was very easy to get confused. We'll see later why there's a tzad, then by limit that Torah it's different. We're going to get to it. That's a whole sugya. Yeah, but we do take money. No, but we take money. That's the point. We do take money.
Well, but the point is if I have a gardener who comes to my house once a week and you decide, comes on Wednesday, you decide on Tuesday to come on my lawn, I don't have to pay.
That's true. That's a different. I'll bring it on later because I didn't need him. You wasted my money.
Right. It means say same thing if I have a house that doesn't need painting. And you
Yes,
paint the house.
so this doesn't need a painting. Yes, I don't need painting. It was gewaldig till now.
So if a Rebbe decides he wants to tutor a kid who's doing fine.
Yeah, then there's nothing. There's nothing.
If the school wants to send your kid to a tutor.
But the school has an in-house tutor for that reason, for the children who fall
my
behind.
house needs a paint, and somebody could come up randomly, paint it, and say, here's the bill?
Yes, but you can tell her, I ain't paying you the bill that you billed me. I'm going to find out.
I've heard that the hashgachas,
I don't understand.
how does it work? If a company, let's say, is certified by a random hashgacha, and I'm not saying anyone in particular, the way it works is they send mashgichim, randomly throughout the year to check to make sure everything is still kosher, right? And whenever they do that, they send a bill to the company from the time of the thing of the mashgiach. So very often these companies, the hashgacha companies, feel like they need to generate some more income. They just, they're sending mashgichim out to go do more visits. So like that could be an example.
That's Geneva. That's Tam Geneva.
Well, they're still coming to verify.
That's Geneva. If they don't need it, guy's gonna do your computer work and he doesn't need it, and he's just gonna, waste his time and redo things that you don't need. So I'm Geneva. I mean, that's a ganav.
Well, some would say you don't ever have to check. You know what I mean? Like it's
It dep-
there's not a set amount of checking.
No, if the policy of the company is twice a week, they come once a week or once in 5 weeks, and now they need money to do it, it's Bamsh Geneva.
Times are tough, so they.
But what about who decides, Taka, if this is a service needed? The guy, let's say, has a scratch in his car, he doesn't want to put the money into fixing it. Some guy comes and fixes the scratch, I never asked you.
That's a riches good later. We can the whole riches good later. When we say it's very difficult, not always do you say, I didn't know your car, but if it's a banged up car, another scratch, if it's a fancy car, then you are. It depends on the car.
So I'm saying he's saying your father, but if he has a house, the house needs painting. It's not. If someone paints the house, sometimes you won't owe the money.
You want what?
I'm saying
My house needs paint, and some guy comes up, he's gonna say, the average to paint this house is $8,000. It's not a small amount of money. I didn't ask him to do it.
Yeah, but if it needs a painting,
Yeah,
I don't want to.
that's a whole sugya later, which you have to see how we judge these
Well,
things.
the trouble that we get into is because we're saying, hey, if you do a service on somebody because they don't ask, then the guy owes you.
Doesn't need. But when you don't need is nothing. It's something that needs it, and it.
The examples of
Right.
My
What-
kid needs a new pair of pants because there's a hole in his pants, and someone goes and takes him and gives him a new pair, they should come and send me a bill?
No, they can't. That's a gift. That's a gift. I'm not talking. You can't get. You gave a gift to my child. One thing.
They say, no, I went
But
out.
I'm going to ask you to give a gift. That's something else. Talking about a service. The guy comes and works something. I mean, it is a long arichas. This is but let's leave it for later. It's a whole simulator.
So need is mamish need, not a.
Well, it's not so simple.
See, but in the law, in the secular law, they call it implied consent versus express consent. So if a person expressly consents, then that's okay. Implied, which is, there's an implied, for example, a doctor doing an operation, he happens to notice something's out of place, and he fixes it, and you go, who told you to fix it? So in that case, you go, well, we presume that every human being would want that fixed. But, so that's the best example in terms of where we say,
Halacha is not that way.
Right, we would agree with that.
And halacha is not that way. Halacha is not that way. And halacha will be, let's say you can't afford the paint, I'm almost sure we'd have to paint. So you could say, you know what, you painted it, very, very nice, but I cannot afford, and that's the reason I didn't paint it. You know that I can't afford, I'll pay $1 a week.
Right? I owe you the money for it, I'll pay it.
Pay $1 a week.
And you're like a happy
I'm saying,
Always.
That's a good deal, though.
And
You're happy.
just by the way, the person who owes is the owner, not the, if I'm renting my apartment and some guy paints it, is it the person who's getting condemned?
I don't, that's a whole separate issue. That's a whole separate issue. So, okay, so now the question is, now everybody said, the question is, what happens, you hire a middleman misrepresents you. So let's say, you have someone is your shliach, your foreman hires a person and does exactly what you want. But what happens, they didn't do what you wanted. Now this happened many years ago, one of the local schools, where the principal hired someone and the board clearly said, we can't afford only so much and so much. He went, he just said, don't worry, we need you, come, take the job.
Sorry, what was the type of work being done?
I don't even say what type, but at one of the schools, the local schools, the principal, the board told the principal, I agree we need someone on the board or whatever on the work, but we cannot afford more than $30,000, and that's all we could afford. So the principal was only a shlich of the board. The principal went, didn't ask questions, hired someone who was very expensive, Taka very, very, very good, took him out of another school, paid him money, to leave that school to come to us, and then there was no money. So they went to the entire. This was, you understand? The principal was the one who said, the board said clearly, see, those days there was no email, it was just minutes, which was barely able to read. That's why email is a lot better nowadays, because they did write down the minutes, how was it called, the minutes of the meeting, whatever it's called, but it was difficult, but other times it was much clearer. But again, so the question is, do they have to pay or don't have to pay? That is the question now. So the mechaber, this is based this Siman, when the shliach changes the agreement of what was set up. What do you say?
Almost sounds simple that it's a try something.
And now you're going to learn. That's what you came to learn. Now you're going to find out that's not the way you think. So the Umar Shlichai, he tells the shlich, say, I want you to hire workers for $3. V'holach v'sachram ba'arbu. Mamish our case, he went and he offered the guy 4. Now, in Umalehem, he tells him a shliach, Scharcham ulai. That's the key. This is the key of all problems in the school system. So their schools learned from the major mistakes. They don't say in the contract the principal is responsible, doesn't say anymore the board. They have a very vague language written. Someone showed me a contract in one of the local schools. You can't sue the board members. That view wasn't, you can't call me the court. I answer, don't worry, they protect themselves. But if a guy says, the principal says, Scharcham ulai. If he didn't say, Scharcham ulai, then we'll see later what. But if he says, I am responsible to get the money to you.
The middleman says
The principal said.
The principal, whatever, the shliach. Whoever, it doesn't have to be, you have a company, and the shliach says, and he says, you ask him who is, you see, normally no one asks in a company who's going to pay. And there was a lot, if you know, there was trouble. Are you going to read this over? And the Chabad, remember when the Chabad almost closed down about 10 years ago, was it? 8 years ago? The Cheder, remember that what happened?
Yeah.
So one of the dintoides was, who is responsible to pay the Rebbes who were not paid? That's what it came to me. So I asked them, did the principal say he is responsible? And there was no proof. They claimed to say, yes, he said he's responsible. And they couldn't. It has to be, you are saying, I hire. Often the principals do say that. And often the principal says, absolutely not. I'm going to try to get the money, but it's not my achayis. So if he says, Scharcham ulai, So the board said $3. I said, let's say $30,000, and I said $40,000, the principal. And I said, it's my responsibility. They pay $30,000, and I have to pocket from my money $10,000. Because I said it's my responsibility. And I hiked the price. He gives 4. Now this is very important way the Mechaber says, Mechaber is very mekatzer. That means, let's say the school doesn't have now money. Let's say they don't have right now the money. They okay, we won't be able to pay. What was part of the problem then? The school said, we owe you, okay. Right now we don't have money. But if the principal says, he has to pay. Sell your house. You said you're responsible. You have to pay. And then you go collect from the school. You understand? That's what the Mechaber is saying. If you don't get it. If you said, the buck stops by me, I am responsible. So even though the school doesn't have money, you understood that, you'll get it from the school, and the school agrees it's going to pay you $30,000. $30,000 they agree, but they don't have money now. You have to pay, and later you should collect it from them. It's not his headache to go wait to collect the money. Yes.
When he says that I'm responsible, he's saying that to the sofer or to the mishaleh? The worker.
The middleman, the shliach, not the shaleach. The shliach, you mean. The shliach says I am responsible.
He's saying that to the person he's hiring.
Right.
He's not saying to the mishaleh.
No, that's why I gave the mashal of the principal. The guy, the principal.
Didn't they say that they're willing to pay $30,000?
Yes, but they don't have money now. So does he say, who should wait now? Does the teacher say, I'm going to wait till the school gets the money? Or but since the principal says, I am responsible, this principal has to pay. If you...
Why would we say that the principal was only accepting the $10,000 additional responsibility?
That means he has to cough up no matter what, even the school has $1 million. Let's say the school is a wealthy school. And the school said, we told him, hire for 30. And he went to hire for 40. We said 30, and this is what you're getting 30. You said, it's like you hired them, it doesn't make a difference. Also doesn't make a difference how much the true value it is. We don't care about the true. Maybe the value is 40,000. That doesn't care. We said to you, we only want 30, and you took responsibility.
Is it these specific words that he has to
Yes,
say?
yes.
Like
That makes them into trouble.
In my kid's school, the principal does the hiring. Okay?
Yeah, but he doesn't say schar cholai. Find that out. He hires them, and he does. They're all very careful, the principals lately. They have learned.
You don't speak Hebrew.
The concept is guaranteeing payment. If the teacher says to the principal, who's going to pay, he says, don't worry, I'll make sure.
I'll make sure.
Then you're in trouble.
Right. I'll make sure it's Chacham Alai.
Yes, I'll make sure that you're going to get paid. That means you're taking responsibility. That's what it means.
So Chacham means I'll pay you.
Yeah, so, you're going to get paid. When they came to me, one of the teachers was screaming. He said, "Don't worry, I'll pay you. You're going to get paid."
What happens if he doesn't say that? What happens?
They don't say that. Today, principals are smarter. Then we're going to see in a minute. We'll see in a minute. I want to first step by step. It's extremely confusing. I want to say first step by step. First step, if you say schar cholai, so we don't care how much the true value of the work is. They said only 30. You added 10, and you said I'm responsible. It's like you would have hired them, and you have to pay 10,000, and then you collect. And if they don't have money or they don't want to pay at all, you have to pay them. Then you go collect.
Is it indefinite?
What do you mean? What?
Meaning, say, what's the term? No term was specified. He hires a teacher for 40 years. It's supposed to be 30. Is it 5 years? Is it 1 year?
Whatever it comes, 1 year contract. It's just.
And would it matter if it was a human services department, it was a bigger company where the human services department said this and they said start can
A lie. It's too bad.
lie.
You have to be careful what you say. Doesn't make a difference.
There's no king in here. It doesn't matter. Just the word.
See, we'll later learn why we don't need kinyan. This is important because every worker, when he starts working, that's like a kinyan. We'll learn Hilchos kinyanim later. The fact that he started working.
Is it a love for the not the shliach, but for the, let's say the school has money. Is it a love for them not to? Sorry, is it a love for the shliach not to pay if the school pays? The school has money, even though they don't want to, they'll pay.
School doesn't want to?
The school doesn't want to. They said, I want to pay 30. They end up paying 40. It should have been paid by, the 10 should have been paid by the shliach. Is there a love on the shliach now?
Because the
That's the word love. If the school paid 40, does the shliach have to pay the school? The school didn't want to have it. They gave the guy $40.
They didn't want to have it.
Depends by what they said. Always the moment is what did they say? So you know what?
He said schram.
No. But why did the school pay the 40?
Just to keep up their name, because they have the money, whatever it happens to be.
No, me said
But they didn't
That,
want.
no.
They didn't
That
want
one
to.
second. All that depends. It's not just you can't brush it aside. If they said, listen, we need a principal, we don't want a sichsich, it depends why they paid them. All depends. If they said nothing, then you could say they have a right.
They said clearly, you owe 10,000.
No, then okay. Then they have to pay. They have to pay. He has to pay the school $10,000. The Issa, not Issa. The shliach has to pay the school $10,000.
indemnification, school can turn around and sue it. And say, give us.
Yes, the school gets the turn around and ask the money back. Yes. Okay, so this is when a guy says chod won't lie. That's why when you hire someone, don't be a gitter. Yiddish to say. Just be careful. I mean, I know since many years already, the schools and are very careful already. Very, very careful. Principals are careful. The schools are careful. The boards are careful. Used to be, I remember years ago, one of the guys in my community wanted to sue the board members.
That's why the board members these days, they take out special insurance policies.
They do? But in the contract it says, with the rabbis, with the thing, I read one of the contracts, it says clearly, we are the fundraisers, but if anything goes wrong, we are not a personal liability. It's very clear.
Right, but if a kid falls in the school.
That's something else, but I'm talking, that could be. I'm just talking about, is the payment. I'm talking about payment of the teacher, which many schools struggle at the end of the year, you know that.
Who's the responsible party, not the board and not the principal?
So that's why I told this Rabbi, when you went to the school, you read the contract, and you went hoping nothing is going to fall apart.
Right.
But it fell apart, it's not, finished, you knew.
Nobody has to pay him?
Well, who are you going to sue? So the Moshe has a tshuva, I think so, and they hold out that the school must see to get him pay him. But what happened?
You can sue the school.
Why don't you just turn this off about it? Let's just tell us.
In theory, you can sue the entity.
Yes. Okay. So he says the Mechaber, mafsid echa mikisoi. Okay. Now, v'yesh omrim. And this is going to be a shock to all of you. I know you're all going to react. Oh, what happened to Nochem? Oh. So this.
He's going to do services for people.
This Yesh Omrim is, this Yesh Omrim, people always learn this, it sounds the opposite you would think. Yesh Omrim, im kol ha'pahalim, ein niskulim rak barbur. All the workers only get paid for. Okay, let's say that there's no such a thing, like the case that I said before. Let's say that no one gets paid for this job $30,000. There's no such a thing.
It's too low, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, this job is $40,000, the minimum. People get 50, but no one gets 30.
But even though you said I can only afford 30.
No, the school board said this to the principal, but the principal offered 40. That's the case. We have to focus on the case.
Yeah, but who said 30?
The board member said 30. This principal said 40. Now, we all know you cannot get someone for $30,000.
Even though Kol National and Kayim.
Yeah, so he says, Yesh Omrim, im kol ha'pahalim ein niskun rak barbur, halabal abayis noisen l'shliach kfi ma shenahani, het Rabbi Isai, moire de gechidish. So that means, what happened? Let me explain to you all what happens. This principle was Meshana the Shlichus. Okay? That means they told him, hire for 30, he went to hire for 40. So he's not a Shlich. We have a klal in Hilchos Shlichus. If you change one order, you're fired. Automatically fired. If we hire you, we tell you one way, and you do a different way, you're fired. So this is like a person, a yodet and he did something, so you have to pay him the 30. That's the only 40. You understand what I just said?
No.
Choshen Mishpat, you have to help up. Once I hired the principal was Mishana his job.
Right.
And that means the school board says to him, we want you to hire for 30. So he went and hired for 40, then he was changed the rules.
Right.
Then he's not a shliach of the board members.
Right.
Since he's not a shliach from the board members, so he's nothing. So that's like someone would have come into the school and did the job that the school needed. Someone with the whole year right was working there.
That's the one.
You follow?
Just that's explaining why.
That's called the yoyred the chsuda shechaveiroi. So then they have. What do you say?
It doesn't hold. It doesn't hold. It's null and void.
He has to pay 40.
So,
The school has to pay 40.
That's the parentheses. That's the Choshen.
so just to clarify, the difference between what we're saying now and what we said before is that in the earlier case, he said, you can rely on me, then it's 40. So if he says rely on me, then he's still considered a shliach. But now that
No.
There was not shliach. The shliach is not, but he has to pay him because I guaranteed it for you.
No, but why does the school have to pay the 30 then?
Why the school 30? But the school is willing to pay 30, and he got someone to do the 30. I don't need shlichus to make him work because the school wanted it and he got someone.
I'm confused. This is the second opinion that's arguing on what we just learned?
This opinion says the first opinion says what happens, there is both prices. There's 30 and there's 40.
Right.
So the first opinion says if they're both prices, the school says we were only willing to pay for 30. You offered 40, it's your problem.
Right.
Now says the Ramah, what happens if there is no one who pays only 30? No one pays 30. There's no such a thing.
Right.
So
Two opinions, there's two different.
no. But the Shach wants to say, the Shach says there is no argument. Mosul say not everyone agrees to that. Shach wants to say there is no argument. Everyone agrees. The Shach and the Sma, they both say there is no argument. That everyone will agree in such a case where no one does it for 30. That even though this board member said 30 we're paying, and he hides for 40 because there's no one who does it for less than 40. The Ramah says the school must pay 40. Okay? Because that's you can't get. If there's two prices, you're right. That means our people 30 and our people 40. You offered 40, you cough out the money. It's your headache.
This logic of him not being a shliach anymore, if we apply that to the first scenario, where there is 30 and 40, they told him 30, but he went and hired a guy for 40. If he didn't say, rely on me, he just said, hey, the school wants to hire you, and you go do this job.
That was Susi. That I don't want. It gets the next mechaber. That's the next case. I know. If I don't want to get there because it's a little confusing. So let's focus this way. Susi, the focus the next thing.
There's one thing Rabbi Tauber, that if the board would have hired the worker straight, and no one works for
That's the next case. It's very confusing. It's only about shliach. Now I want to tell you something. The Shach and the Siman, everyone screams that's what we pass. Do you have a Kivega printed on your page?
No.
Chadish Reb Kivega?
No.
You should have it, no?
Yeah, I have it on the side. On the right side, on the bottom. The bottom.
So it says, Avo Beretva, Kusi Shem Rabbi, the Filikim is going down in Suchrit Nelerak Shuloish. Now, this is very important, this Ritva. I'll tell you why. This is a very important Ritva. Yeah, so in Choshen Mishpat, we have a klal. Let me just tell you what the klal in Choshen Mishpat is. Once you find a dasi chidua means one opinion. See, Choshen Mishpat doesn't work with roiv and not roiv. If there's one opinion, you cannot be moitze muman. The guy could say kimli. You know what the word kimli means? Let me explain what it means. In Choshen Mishpat, we don't have a din of go after Rav. In Halacha, Yeredeya, normally we follow the Rav Achronim, the Skumas Apaskim, but they all agree on. That's how we paskin. That's in Yeredeya and Halacha. Choshen Mishpat, there's a din. You want to be moitzimuma from him. Hayos, there's no psak on that. So then you could say, I'm relying on that. You want to be moitzimum for me? You want to take money out of me? The Ritva says, I don't have to pay. You can't be we have a klal. Ha-moitzim echaveiroi ulavaraya. So everyone asks, every yeshiva bacha says, wait a minute. If I don't pay, I'm a ganef. If I owe you the money, I don't know. I don't know. It's a machloikas over here. I don't know. Well, many Choshen Mishpat, you have to remember, there's two parts of Choshen Mishpat. One part where one is lying, or both saw the story. We both agree what happened. It's a machlekes about the halachas. A shomer aveda, let's just say, a shomer aveda is a machlekes, and the Gemara machlekes that we paskin is a shomer sucha, shomer chinam. It's a big machlekes. So it's a question. We all agree to the facts. Just don't know. Here we all agree to the facts, but there is one ritva that says the school doesn't have to pay. They could say, I came like the Ritva. And we said only 30, and that's all we're willing to spend. It's not my headache. So this guy, the worker, doesn't get paid. Because according to the masking could say, the board members could say, Kimberly like the Ritva. We said only 30, and even though no one gets 30, only everyone gets 30, we only get Kimberly. And this guy could say, wait a minute, I don't have to pay. Because Kimberly like the Shach and the Ramon, everyone says that the board should pay. So,
But at least according to the Ritva, the school would have to pay the 30. Correct.
30, everyone has to pay.
Why is it not for Rabbi
Because that's a cloud. The Gemara says that you could say Kimli. Because by the moments we say, you must prove your case. The Torah sets over there. You're not a Gazlan. That's a rule in Choshen Mishpat. There are many eyes on that. So, I want to say this is very important. Often people go to the Torah. You hear, Danny, I want you to hear this. This is so important. Here's the Daniel. This is very important. People go to the Torah. It happened more than once. And they not only didn't win, they lost two ways. And the reason is not because they didn't trust you. You sometimes could fall between the cracks. This is a typical case. Where if this would go to Din Torah, the school could say, like the Ritva, I don't want to pay, and they could say, the Shlich say like them. So the principal's not going to pay, the school is not going to pay. And this guy fell between the cracks.
Well, thank God that he gets 30.
It's so simple. The schools struggle terrible.
That's of course assuming that, as a general rule, I just read a story of some law firm offered a job for a year, $10,000. There's no lawyers in the world that work for $10,000, but in this economy, that people don't have a job, so they apply for it in the hopes of getting experience, whatever it is.
Everyone agrees. If I come to you and I say to you, for $1, I agree you should paint. And he says, okay, I'll paint it for $1. Whatever, kol tanash b'mamekayim. I more than once already said it in Torahs, and a lawyer comes, and the last time was a lot of money involved, and he tells me in court to throw it out because it's not yoshedig. I forgot how it's called.
It's not adjusted.
No, there's a fancy legal name. What? Unconscionable. Yeah. That's in Halacha, there's no such thing. Kol t'nai sheb'mamekayim. No matter how much you took advantage. This guy, it was a case where the guy took advantage. You want my money? I want 83% of the profit. He said in court they would throw out. So what? But he agreed.
There are times that we say, when a person says something and he has no belief that it will actually come to that, then it...
Signed the contract. What do you mean? They signed the contract. What do you mean you don't believe? He gave him 200... I don't know what that's not a smachta. That's not an asmachta. We open the business, I give the cash, and you are the worker, And how are we going to divide the profit? Whatever profit comes in, I want 80%, you get 20%. It's not, this is not an asmachta.
Why is that so crazy? Why is that unconscionable?
I'm not a lawyer. I passed the legal system. He told me after 24%, it's not already unconscionable because you have to pay for the work. That's nothing gay. Also wasn't gay. He was darshaning away this lawyer. He's trying to explain that's 24%. Then you have to first pay how much is work. The Torah is no such a thing. Whatever you call an ashimum. So if a guy says, I'm going to work in the law firm for $1, it's okay. Don't you have in the news you hear the guy, the CEO said $1 he's taking? Something like that?
The billionaire CEO takes $1 a year.
Governor Schwarzenegger, give it $1 a year.
Depends on whom. From other people, you took a lot of money. Other kind.
Yeah, but that's clear. That whatever we're only discussing where there was no without a shliach. When we both agree that's how much you can get paid, that's how much you get paid.
Saying that, I guess the point is, how do we decide what it is? There's somebody out there who's willing to take a job. I mean, say they hire
That's right. How much? You know what did we do? We did it in Torah's more than once. I got on the yellow pages. I would call a plumber. I had this plumber more than once. How much? This is the problem. This is about how much do you charge for such a problem?
You say you don't have to find the one person in the world who's willing to pay.
No, because we're going to learn later. Yes, but if you could show me that the people, not one shugana, that the price goes, that many people don't charge so much.
So, Rob, we've gone two scenarios. Now, where the shliach to the price higher than what he was authorized, and the other one was
It wasn't market rate.
okay. Okay.
But both prices are accepted, and then the other case was where the lower price is never accepted.
Now, and you said that the shop said that there was no machlokas between these two. What's the other opinion?
The Ritva holds, since the board said $30,000, they don't have to pay $1 more. If you would have come in and there was no deal, no one said anything, so then we go about the prices, we'll still see the going price. The board said $30,000 we're willing to spend. It doesn't make a difference if they are billionaires or you have nothing. It doesn't make a difference why they chose the number 30. Since they said for $30,000 and you have to pay.
The other thing I'm not getting is the concept that we laid out is if the shliach changes something, he's no longer a shliach.
Maybe.
Right? Is someone arguing on that? No. So shliach changes the price, he's now no longer a shliach. If he's no longer a shliach, well, what's the result of that? So in the scenario where nobody else charges that price that was set by the Mishaleach, we say that they actually are on the hook for the full price that the shliach gave. Right?
Yes. So far he's saying good. So far he said nothing wrong, but now what's your question?
No, but what I'm saying is this concept of the shliach not being the shliach anymore.
Right, so he's not a shliach, and it's just like he would have walked into the school, worked for a year without anyone hiring, he did his work, and the school needed it, it has to be paid, whatever they're going right.
I guess what I don't understand is why does it matter whether there's people out there that charge the lower price or not? If the rule is that I as a shliach change the price, I'm no longer a shliach, and then they're able to go back, then what should it matter whether people charge that price or not?
Because I hear your problem. What happens, I go to the plumber, and I say, fix my plumbing, and I give Daniel's address. I don't know your address. I give him your address.
Right.
Who has to pay him? I paid a check on him. You don't know what they did in Williamsburg. When there was fighting in Williamsburg, that was commonly did from one party to another party. You hire a worker, I take a plumber, and I say to him, come, fix my plumbing, and I send it to your house.
So if he needed it, he would have to pay the lowest.
But he doesn't pay. So who does he doesn't want to pay? Whatever, he has to pay, he doesn't want to pay. So he says, I want to get paid today. I'm not interested to go fighting with Yana. I have to pay. I send him there. He thought it was mine. He didn't have no idea it wasn't his. It's like I would have hired him. Instead of Hai working for me, I said I work for him. Now I could go afterwards and claim the money from you. Does that answer your question now? So if he's not a shliach, you know what I mean? He doesn't have to be a shliach. That's Hilchos shlichus. You never made me a shliach. Did you make me a shliach? No. So why can I collect the money from you? I can collect the money from you, got a benefit. The plumbing was fixed. But he could say, I don't want to deal with you. You're not going to pay me now. You're going to pay me 5 years from now. I have no patience to deal. I want you to pay me. I have to pay him. Because when I send him to that address, it's I hired him. Since I didn't tell him, it was not mine.
Just to draw a fine line, at what point does he stop being the shliach?
When he changed the number.
But in the way, is that after the person is given this new number, the 40,000, accepts it, picks up, moves to Los Angeles, takes the job, does his position as a shliach end when he says to the person, I'm going to, we're going to pay you 40,000?
Yeah.
At that moment.
That moment.
But there's no actual, again, no kinyan there's no kinyan
You don't need a
requirement, but
kinyan.
the agreement doesn't actually exist yet.
Right. There's no, even though he signed with this principal, since he changed the rules, but it was
Stopped
time.
being the principal 2 minutes earlier.
2 minutes earlier.
He's not a shliach.
So who would these teachers sign as a contract? I mean, who would teachers sign a contract with? I mean, they sign a contract.
They hope that
sign
the
it
school.
with the principal, they sign
No,
it
they
with
start with the board, and they hope the board is going to pay. They don't want the school to fall
But if the
apart.
contract says a salary on it, Mastama.
Yeah. So.
So if the board signed it, they
Why
signed
did
30,
you-
they signed 40, the board has to pay 40, no?
But in the board it says we are not personal liability. You know that? Most but lately. What? You on the board?
No.
Yeah. Anyone here on the board? Are you on the board?
No, I'm saying if the board signed the contract, then the school's responsible for 40,000.
Yeah, but who is the school?
That's a good question.
Who is the school now?
But it is a corporation. It's a legal corporation.
Yes, but Apitoida. Who is the school now?
No, I understand. I'm saying is the school. When the
Right. If there's a building, and if there's a building, and there's this, yeah. But in this case, I remember now if they had a building, whatever. The new principal came, and the new board that says, you guys messed. It's your deal with them. We're coming. We want to rebuild the Chabad school. This is what we want to do, and that's what happened.
But it's the concept of bankruptcy. The entity doesn't have any money, and the principals are not liable. That if you the board members and the principal, then you simply can't collect.
We don't have bankruptcy in Jewish.
I'm saying in the sense of the word is they can't collect. You can collect from the entity. That's who you sign your contract with. You can't go personally after this person. Or
Right.
Is there a corporation in the Torah to begin with?
No, there's such a concept. There's such a chirgabaribis. There's such a concept. Sure, you said.
Not for this, not for
Yes,
us.
for this, yes. Every Melamed who works for a school, doesn't your business work that way? What happens if, for whatever reason, this company cannot pay? Do you have to take money out of your pocket and pay?
We didn't tell you what's it.
No, it depends what it says in the contract.
But you're saying this school,
Correct.
it's just this entity is really just a mamutza between the parents.
Correct.
And
Exactly.
So really, ultimately, if the mamutza falls out of the way, you should be able to go back to
That's what I said before. We later learn, I'll show hopefully next week, and that's what I said before. We later learn is a big machloikis. Can we go now to what's his name? To the parents and say, listen, we gave you a cheap price, but it didn't work out. We thought we were able to raise the money, but now that's not, can we go to tell them, listen, according to this, you want to hear now? Okay, let's stop before we go right there. Come what we just learned now. So they didn't do the job to raise the money. This is what happens in schools. What happened? The board was going to raise the job, and they didn't raise the job. So the teacher could tell the parents, look, they said you can do a job. They never did their job. They never raised money. They became lazy. How do we look at it? We take them out, and now we say you have to pay me, like this says in the Ramah, or say no. You agreed that they're going to raise the money. You can't come to me. But let us see rise to this.
There's another problem. Every parent can tell you, okay, say that, how much do you want from me? there were 800 parents, there were 400 parents.
Well, you have to divide the classroom, how much it costs each child. There's a number.
The teacher doesn't want that. The teacher wants to deal with the mamutza.
Yeah, but right now, everyone is out of the picture. Now he could go to the parents and says, look, every individual.
The board, in essence, when they hire this, they tell the parent, okay, you pay $6,000 tuition. And then they tell the teacher, I'm going to pay you $40,000. They're in essence saying, start from alive. The board is saying that.
But it doesn't say that. Yeah, but it doesn't say that. In the if you read the board, get at the basis, it says if the school defaults, you can't come after my private money.
No, that's for the private board member. But I'm saying the school, whoever is that,
But
goes back to
this is what happened. I remember they had a building then. The first time Chabad fell apart. They didn't have a building.
They didn't own a building.
They didn't own a building, and that's why the problem was they were not getting paid. You can remember something couldn't go even after the building, so there was no entity, there was no nothing. There was, this guy, and they even for that reason changed the name, right? They gave it a new name before there was a different name. Legally, they illegally changed for because they didn't want to. But this, you can see over there was no building, there was no nothing. So Mamela, there were teachers who were not paid. I don't know if you know that. There were teachers who were not paid then.
For the original switch, when it no longer was under the banner of Westwood and it was taken over by
By the board.
no, there was no board. It was Yaska Mishalava to do it. And then transferred Yaska to the board.
Saying so, if there is no, so the teachers didn't get paid. There was nothing to collect, no property to collect, no middleman to collect. So the Rabbi did the work for the thing. Can the Rabbi now go and tell the parents, I was not paid. The school owes me $40,000. You guys have to you have to pay.
Let's take a step back. So when the board is making a commitment,
Well, Pashto we later see not so simple.
when the board is
Sounds
making
like
a
there's a
commitment to the
kidney, because
teacher,
everybody has a.
Okay, but let's see. But for the kidney,
I had a deal.
yeah,
why is
but,
it any different? If the parents say, I'm willing to pay $6,000 for my child, and the board says, okay, and they tell the teacher $40,000. Why is it any different than a guy saying to a shliach, I'm willing to pay $30,000, and the guy goes
This is
and
the-
promises $40,000?
yeah, the question is.
It's the same.
Yeah, but the question really is that it's true. But you have to start? It depends on later. Let's start the agreement. Is the agreement says, don't worry, someone has to pay. When the school gives a scholarship, what did they say? We can raise the money. That's really what it means. I mean, I'm not talking about when they ask for because they want you to pay for the other children. You know what I mean? Let's just say. Often schools do that. But let's say you make a cheshbon, a child costs truly $6,000 a year. Not because they want you to pay, and not because they, but it could truly cost them $6,000 a child. So now, what does it mean? They say, I'm going to try to raise the money for you. Okay? Or they're saying, I am responsible, but they never took responsibility. See, they never said, it's $6,000, you offering $3,000, I am going to make sure for your sake I'll get $3,000. And I'll pay the Rebbe now.
No one said it.
But that's what a board is supposed to do, correct? That's what the board is all about.
You're saying the difference between express and implied. There's no implied anything in Mishpat. It's only express.
It's only expressed. But here it's,
Even though that's the board's job, and even though if the board mismanages the money,
so this is what I don't know what happened there, but let's say they didn't do the job, no one raised the money. I remember the story was the board didn't do the job. They never went to raise money.
They did the job, they were not matzliach. That's what it's nice. They did the job, they were not matzliach.
That's something that matters. That makes a big difference. That makes a big difference. That is a huge difference.
Also, it's a good point,
That's
because
what
in
happens.
these cases,
You try your
Rabbi,
best, and you
Yeah,
in
if
these
that's-
cases, these board members, they're volunteers, they're not paid.
Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
Doesn't
They're
matter.
volunteering to do it.
Right, so they have to say, yeah, always, so, and that doesn't make a difference. And Halacha doesn't make a difference. Schor Cholah doesn't make a difference. I'm a volunteer, if I'm not a volunteer, it doesn't make a
I do
difference.
my job, I do fundraise. Sometimes you're matzliach, sometimes you're not. You can
Yeah.
spend a
Yeah,
week,
that's nothing to do.
Go and get nowhere.
Right, the Schor Cholah, that doesn't do. The question is now, how do we look at it? We look at it as now, I said to you, I'll try to fill up the gap. That's all the board says. And tell the Rabbi, don't worry, you're going to get paid. The board tells. Now it fell apart. But the rabbis did their job, and they were not paid. Can we go to the parents and say, look, you owe us the money, because the middleman didn't do his job? This is what the whole question over here, can we do such an argument?
can you turn around and say the Rebbe can't do his job? I didn't like the way
No, that every time is going to be every class.
Yeah.
There's
In theory, is that
a theory, right? But usually there's always going to be in every class 1 or 2, 3.
We discussed the scenario where someone said, I'll do the job for X amount of money, and then realized, hey, it's more work than you quoted or whatever. In that type of scenario, can the person, or you mentioned the tutor, or whatever it may be, can either
No, it's a
say-
big difference. No, it's a huge difference. If he had to get schoire, and he underestimated. He said, "I'm going to put sheetrock here," and he gave an estimate, which was ridiculous. You can't do sheetrock, and that's a whole different sugya. That's later a whole different sugya. But if there was no sheetrock, he was a rabbi, and he took someone in, and he realized, what? I didn't realize the boy is such a hard boy. I mean, that doesn't make a difference. I mean.
But at that point, do you say, hey, you agreed upon it, you got to do it? Or
Yeah,
you
well,
say,
he agreed
hey,
to it.
sorry, it's not.
Well,
working
each
out.
hour over there, it's a mile because each hour he gets paid. He could have stopped Miller, says, I'm not teaching him next week unless I get paid more. What he did do, he kept teaching to the end of the year, and then the end of the year, Vayuvoy, and he says, this child was very difficult, extremely difficult. I'm not talking about the child was bad. Some child is learning disabled, and it was.
I hire a guy to teach my kid bar mitzvah, to teach his parsha, how to lane it, right? He says, all right, I'll do it for whatever the number is. And then he's halfway through, and he says, you know what, this is taking longer than I expected, I want more money or I'm done.
There's such a thing that he underestimated. He underestimated. Depends. Again, that depends what he came to this amount of money. He thought it'll take an average charge 5 hours. So I thought that's why I charge 5 hours. And he charged.
Maybe he was just lowballing.
That's already that.
Bait and switch.
That's what I'm saying. That already dying us to judge. In Chosh Mishpat, you have to know what the reality is, what the halacha is. The halacha is there's such a thing. I knew by Sechiras too. He made a mistake. There was a mistake. He miscalculated. The guy miscalculated.
You don't say kol tamashma l'chaim is not as across the board.
Wait, there was a nua. He didn't realize.
You know, means I rented a place and the going rate was 1,000, and I didn't know, and I agreed to pay $4,000 more.
I'll tell you what happened. One of the schools, the child was high. That really need, and the guy was willing to pay, but they were not getting anywhere. And they asked him to pay. He took him out and sent him to a special school in Toronto. A special school for anyway, the bottom line was very big school. So they sent to Toronto.
But they have a very big school for special.
Special. That's what he did. So far from school. So the father told me over here. So he did. The school demanded full tuition. That was a mistake. You guys said you could help him, and you couldn't. So you can't ask him for the tuition.
But we have to distinguish between a services contract and
I was talking about services contract right now. That's what his question was.
You're saying
I was wondering if there's a case where you could say, hey, a deal's a deal, you have to stick by your end of the deal.
There are cases, for sure. If I said, I'll teach your child for 5 hours, an hour a day, and it turns out murder. I say H. Yeah, he's sitzen, jumping all over. That was, you agreed to the deal. You could quit. You could always quit, but you can't demand, Okay, Rabbi say. And the Choshen Mishpat is a little bit more complicated.